and welcome to my baking in isolation. This week I was supposed to go to Germany and Austria for Christmas. However, unfortunately on Monday I tested positive for COVID, so I can no longer do that. And I've been spending most of my time locked up in my room until today because I need to bake some Christmas cookies. And these are all German or Austrian recipes and they're very tasty, so I thought I would show you how I make them. 3 of the cookie doughs have to sit in the fridge for, well, between half an hour and an hour. So we're going to do all those 3 doughs first and we'll put them in the fridge and then we'll get on to everything else. Starting with the first type of cinnamon cookies. Now for this recipe we need 2 egg yolks. Thankfully for another recipe we need 4 egg whites, so we'll just separate the egg whites from the yolks and nothing will go to waste. So 2 egg yolks, 150 grams of butter, so now we're going to take the electric whisk and we're going to beat the butter, sugar and egg yolks. We take some ground cloves, there's a little bit of that in there, and then we take cinnamon. Now I really love cinnamon, so I put quite a nice amount into these. Now we also need the zest of 1 lemon, so I've got my little zester here, and I'm just going to take all the zest off of this lemon. Put that all in there, and then we give it a good old mix together. So now I've mixed that in a little bit. I'm going to knead it all together with my hands because the warmth of my hands will help everything combine. So that's all combined now into a dough, and we'll wrap it up in some cling film and then pop it in the fridge. I'll put the links to the recipes that I use for these cookies on the bottom of this video so you can look at them and try them for yourselves because they really are so tasty. And they're on an Austrian website, but it's quite easy to translate if you use Google Chrome because it just translates it for you. Now this is the second cinnamon star recipe, and we need 2 bowls for this. So in the first bowl we're going to mix all of our dry ingredients. So we need 400 grams of ground almonds, 1 Now baking these cookies has made me realise that unfortunately I have actually lost my sense of smell, and I hadn't thought that I had, but I can't smell any of the Christmassy spices, so that's not so great. However, I can still taste, so it's okay. You can buy ground almonds in any of your supermarkets. They will be in the baking section. Crikey Moses. Anyway, so there's that. And then we put some clove powder, some allspice, and of course the cinnamon. Ooh, that's quite a lot of cinnamon. Oh well, you can never have too much cinnamon in my opinion. And On top of all that, we need 300 grams of icing sugar. I'm going to the side for recycling. We'll just mix this all together. Try not to spill anything over the side of the bowl. Maybe learn from my mistakes and use a bigger bowl for these dry ingredients. So these ones are quite good if you have a gluten-free diet, because there's no flour. So that's 2 egg whites. Then we need a third one. I'm pretty sure I need just a plain egg yolk for one of the other recipes. So I will put the egg yolk in that little bowl that I had the egg whites in. So the next bit is like we're making a meringue, because we have to whip all the egg whites until they're nice and fluffy and they form stiff peaks. And we're going to use the electric whisk again. So if you're using the same attachments that you used with the earlier recipe, just make sure that you've cleaned all the sugar and the butter off, because otherwise the egg whites won't stiffen. There we go. So that's all ready. Now that is all done, we're going to slowly add in all of these dry ingredients. So just add a little bit in at first. And fold it in. Add a bit more. Just see all the icing sugar creating a sweet mist. Just inhaling it now. Some more. Whoa, a bit too much. Oops. And put the rest in there. And now again, now most of this is all mixed in, just to make it a little bit firmer and less crumbly. I'm going to use my hands, and it might be a little bit of an excuse to lick my fingers afterwards, so you know. Now this is quite a delicate cookie dough because there isn't any flour in it, so you do have to be careful, not be too rough. And even once it's been in the fridge for an hour or so, it'll still be quite soft. So you just have to be careful when you're making all the shape, when you're using your cookie cutters. And again, we're going to take cling film and wrap it in that. So that is both cinnamon style cookies done. Well, the doughs are done anyway. And now we're going on to the vanilla kipfel. So these are vanilla flavoured. For this recipe, we need 500 grams of flour. Probably would help if I turned the scales on, wouldn't it? 160 grams of icing sugar. 200 grams of ground almonds. Now in Germany and Austria, it's quite popular to have vanilla sugar. So it's just like caster sugar that has been mixed with vanilla. But in England you can't get it unless you order it off of like Amazon or somewhere. But you can make it. The best way to do that is to buy vanilla pods and cut them in half and scrape out the vanilla bean inside, and then put the pods and the vanilla beans in the sugar and just let it sit in a Tupperware tub. I mean, the longer you leave it, the more vanilla it'll be. Just as you can see, you've got the black dots of the vanilla beans, and then you've got the pods here. Yes. So in this mixture we need 28 grams. It says 2 packets because they come in little sachets. But as we don't have the sachets are about 14 grams, so we'll say 28 grams of vanilla sugar. Then we need 400 grams of butter. Now, if you watched my Thanksgiving Day video, you'll have seen how I cut the butter into little squares, so we have to do that again for this. Now for the good old time-consuming job of mixing it all together with your hands. God, there's so much stuff in this bowl, it's really, really difficult to combine. So because this has the almonds in it, it's more fragile, again, like the other one. But strangely enough, I actually think it's more fragile when it's got flour with it as well as the almonds, instead of just the almonds. As you can see, it crumbles. I say that, and then it doesn't crumble. So now I've got one clump that's This never does what you want it to do, does it? It clings when you don't want it to cling, and when you do want it to cling, it's like knit. Okay, so that's the first chunk. So I'll pop that there. Got about the same amount again. But now I can get to it better, we can just and this is it all cling film together now, and as you can see there's actually quite a lot of it, so it's going to make a lot of cookies. So this is now going to go in the fridge for about an hour whilst we get on to baking the other ones. So now we need a baking tray, and then I use a silicone reusable cookie sheet, or you could use greaseproof paper, whichever you've got. And we're going to roll the first cinnamon cookie dough out. So first of all, we're going to put some flour on the counter. Spread the flour out. We also need to put some on the rolling pin. Now we need to cut this quite thin. Now we need to roll this out quite thinly. So, just to make it a bit easier so we don't have a massive amount of dough at one time, I'm just going to cut it in half and leave the other half over there, and we'll sort out this first half. Put it into a circle, and off we go. I hope everyone else is having a really nice countdown to Christmas though. I hope you're watching good Christmas movies. And that's definitely thin enough. It's not too thin, but not too thick. And then we take our cookie cutters. Now, these are actually called Zimtsterne, so cinnamon stars, but I'm not going to just make stars. A Santa's boot. A snowflake. A Christmas tree. A bell. An angel. And a little candy cane. Now, I think using different shapes actually allows you to make the most of your dough and leaves less wastage, I think, because you can fit them all in at different places. So we'll start the Christmas tree, and then come out. We have our, oh, you can't see because my hand's blocking away. There we go. So whilst I've been doing all the doughs, the oven has been preheating to 160 degrees on a fan oven. So these will go in for about 10 minutes, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. Depends how the oven's feeling today, I guess. Okay, so now we're going to make the amaretto balls. So these are basically just, it's almost like buttercream with some white chocolate and some amaretto and almonds in the middle. That's the best way I can describe it. Oh, and then it's covered with coconut, shredded coconut. So, the first thing we have to do is we have to take 100 grams of room temperature butter. And once again, we'll chop the butter into little squares. It just makes it easier when you're using the whisk to, if the butter is in squares. 27. Oh, I hate it with butter when you get to like 3 or 4 grams below where you want to be, because I always find that butter is much heavier than you think it's going to be. So then we take 100 grams of icing sugar. As you can see, this is why the easiest way to describe it is sort of like buttercream. And then we take the electric whisk. And I'm just going to move that glass bowl because I can see the cable pulling that glass bowl off the side, and that would be very, very tragic. And now I'm covered in icing sugar. I don't think my butter was quite as warm as it could have been, so it's taking me a little bit longer, but it's okay. So we'll put that to the side. I'll sort out the sugar in a moment. So then we need white chocolate. We need 200 grams of white chocolate. These are apparently 100 gram packs of chocolate, so I'll just double check. That's actually 207 grams of chocolate, but you know what, I think we can make do with that. So, with the white chocolate, the recipe actually calls for grating it, but I couldn't get a bar of white chocolate, so we've got little chunks of white chocolate. So I think the best thing to do with that is to melt it, so that's what we're going to do. So now we've got the milk chocolate, not the milk chocolate, the white chocolate. So be very careful. We don't want any injuries. So I'm just going to, there we go. We'll mix this with the white chocolate, and then we take the main ingredient, of course, the Disaronno. I'm going to pour that in. Now it says 3 tablespoons, but I'm just going to free pour. I'd say that's about 3 tablespoons. I used melted chocolate as opposed to grated chocolate. It's a little bit more liquidy than it should be. So to compensate, I'm going to add a little bit more sugar. So here I've got the desiccated coconut, and I'm going to pour it onto a plate, so that'll make it easier to roll the balls in it. Spread that on the plate. Here we have our almonds. Hey. Now you can use blanched almonds or just normal almonds or any type of almond. Okay, then we'll pop it in there. As soon as you've rolled it in the coconut though, it's much easier to handle. I am going to put them in the fridge to set a bit. It doesn't say you have to do that, but I did do that last year and I'm definitely going to do that this year as well. I mean, I guess you could be really nice and uniform about it and have each one the same size, but that's definitely not going to be how it is with me. So these will be quite soft, obviously, and gooey, and then you've got the crunch of the almond in the middle, which is quite nice. So once they've set in the fridge, you don't need to worry about keeping them in the fridge. Now we go on to the Lebkuchen, or the gingerbread. So I've got the oven preheating to 170 degrees Celsius in the fan. And now I'm going to start. So first of all, we need, well, the recipe calls for rye flour, but I can never seem to find rye flour. So I've got spelt flour. I used this last year and it worked well. So you can use spelt rye, just not normal white flour. So we need 300 grams. $80 grams of icing sugar. So we'll take a teaspoon of baking powder, the zest of 1 lemon. I like using lemon zest in their biscuits. Cinnamon. Lots of cinnamon. As I said earlier, you can never have too much cinnamon, in my opinion. Some cloves. Just iconic Christmas spices. Allspice. We need some nutmeg. I only have whole nutmeg though. I was watching a YouTube video last night, and it was a guy doing a cooking, he was baking Nigella Lawson's ginger cake. And for the nutmeg, he had this little tiny grater, like about that size. It was so cute. I really want one, but I don't have a cute tiny little grater. I only have this hand grater. So it'll have to do. I think that's enough. And now, this might seem a little bit strange, but we're going to use some cardamom. Now, I couldn't find any cardamom powder. All I could find was whole cardamom pods. So, what we do is we just break off the skin of the pod, and you've got the little stones inside. Now, I also don't have a pestle and mortar, unfortunately, which would definitely make my life easier right now. But, so we're just going to take the little, I don't really know what you call them. What do you call them? Beans? Cardamom beans? I don't think that's quite right. But anyway, take them out and just put them in. I would probably use between 2 and 3 cardamom pods. We'll mix that all together. So now we need some honey. We need 80 grams of honey. This is runny honey, but it says for it to be melted. So I'm just going to put it in the microwave for a tiny amount of time. So I'm just going to put it in the microwave for maybe 10, I'll put it in for 15 seconds. Yeah, this is now quite watery, which is good. So I make a little pit in the middle of my dry ingredients. And as you can see, it's very runny honey. And then we're also going to put 2 eggs in. So you'll notice that this recipe doesn't have butter. But considering the vast amount of butter I've had to use for every other recipe, it's quite nice. Stir it all together. So now I'm going to flour the surface and pour this onto it and roll it out, and then we'll cut it and put it in the oven. Okay, right, so here we go. Now we are taking the flour. I've probably offended any Irish, but so this is quite sticky because of the honey, I would assume. But once you've coated it in the flour, it's much easier to handle. It doesn't stick to your hands then. But it's quite soft, quite a soft dough. It's nice and easy because you don't have to put it in the fridge and let it set or anything. So it says to roll it out, and it's about 1.5, no, not 1.5, half a centimetre thick. Okay. So again, we're using the bell and the Christmas tree and the snowflake and the angel, the boot and the candy cane, the old Santa's boot. Now these do expand, unlike all the other ones that we've made so far. They don't expand, but these ones expand quite a lot. So when you're putting them on the cookie tray, make sure you leave enough space for them to expand a little bit. And we also need to put a little glaze on them, so that's just going to be an egg. We're just going to whisk an egg and then glaze the biscuits. I'm so excited for these. These are so tasty. You do need to make sure that the counter is quite floured, otherwise it will stick. So I'm going to take one of my eggs, crack it. No. And now I'm going to use one of my favourite kitchen utensils. A couple of Christmases ago, my friend bought me a little hot chocolate thing, like cup, with this little tiny whisk. And I just really like small things. I find them really cute. So this is one of my favourite utensils, and I use it as often as humanly possible. And it's perfect for whisking my single egg. It's all nicely whisked. And I've got my glazing brush, and I'm just going to put this on top. Go. They are ready to go into the oven, and they'll go in there for about 10 minutes.